Next fake news article from the Daily Fake Mail. In scientific experiments at University Edinburgh's School of Engineering, not a single droplet was emitted by participants wearing surgical masks, the study claimed. So this is trying to convince you that you should wear a mask and that you should terrorize the deaf people who can no longer see the words coming out of your mouth. You should put off getting COVID until next year when you have cancer and diabetes. And that somehow that everyone wearing a mask is going to somehow lower your chance of dying from COVID. This is not true. There are indeed actually other factors that come into play when you're talking about your own health here, because let's be real, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make yourself more healthy by wearing the mask. But there's a problem with wearing the mask is that if you have a new mask, if you do it the sterile way, then this would be true that wearing a mask would actually help you. But if you are reusing the mask, then if let's say you have COVID and then you sneeze on the mask, then you reuse the mask. That COVID's going to stay on the mask for a month. So you can reinfect yourself with COVID by wearing the same mask. You can also, you can get viral particulates fall onto the mask as you wear it. And if you do not change it, you can start to inhale these viral particulates. There's also a problem of the cost of wearing the mask. So what is the cost for me for wearing the mask? It's going to be reduced ability to have a child because people are freaking out about COVID. I'm 38. There's not many years left. So every single year down is possibly potentially one child that I am no longer able to have. Then we also have the loss of business productivity. If we just went about our lives as normal, then we wouldn't have so much money lost. So when people start to lose businesses and jobs, it can cause them to commit suicide. 1 in 4 Americans has contemplated committing suicide recently. So they act like, oh, well, all that matters is whether or not people who are sick can go around with COVID because they have a mask on. This is the fundamental problem with it. Like, if you have COVID, what on earth are you going out for to infect people for? Fundamentally, if that person has COVID and they're going out and spreading COVID, that person does not care. That would be why they're going around spreading COVID. As for the rest of us, we're not going around spreading COVID. If I am sick, I'm going to stay at my house so that I don't give people COVID. If you are sick, you should stay at your house so that you don't give people COVID. If you have the flu, you should also, too, stay at your house so that you don't give everybody else the flu. But problem is most people get COVID at their house. You're not going to sit around your house with a mask on your face, although plenty of brainwashed lefties are currently doing this at this moment. So that's the reason why people give COVID to 50% of the people infected with COVID were before they started to show symptoms. And the reason for that was because you had close interactions with people. So what's the alternative here? Don't have any sort of close interactions with people. Don't talk to anyone. just sit in your house, no human contact, don't see anybody's face. 50% of the people will be infected before the person knows that they are have any symptoms. 50% of them. Okay, so if you're going to cut COVID rates down, so like where you also have to look at where the other places of where people are getting them at. They're getting them at bars. They're getting it in social situations where they're talking to people one-on-one. So these people, they're going and talking with people and socializing. So they're probably not over the age of 45. So for them, it's not actually deadly for them to do that. It's actually healthy for them to do that because it's if you wait until next year, you might have cancer, you might have diabetes or some other pre-existing condition that will give you a much higher chance of dying from COVID. But people are obsessed with this whole oh, no, look at the mask. It blocks all the particulates out of the mask. Really? So how does that help me when I go to a grocery store? Oh, but you're indoors. Right. I mean, I'm inside of a place that has a really fancy cooling system that filters the air. Right. It's huge. You're not talking close to people. When you're at a grocery store, it's one of the lowest probability chance places that you're going to go to get COVID. There's no reason to wear a mask in a store. There's no reason. There's no evidence that shows that that is actually a necessary thing. If that was actually the case, all of these articles would say we've prevented a lot of COVID by making people wear masks. But there's a problem. There's no data that shows that. That's the problem with most of this COVID stuff is people are making these assumptions based off of assumptions they made from very limited data. They think, why don't you understand the science? You're not following the science. You're anti-science. Really? I definitely know way more about virology and COVID and the human immune system than 99.999% of America. I modeled the human immune system in engineering school for an AI algorithm modeling the viruses taking over cells as opposed to the white blood cells having an autoimmune response. That was my project in my AI class. And so I've learned a lot about how viruses replicate and how your immune system fights viruses. And I also made ventilators for COVID, an open source ventilator and a ventilator control platform on my Cooking with Kale show, where I do open source cookbooks with a document camera on a green screen. Well, not just a green screen, going back to the OG, my roots. But these people will say, I am being anti-science because I'm not being afraid. And they'll say, no, I took a class in college. I'm a biologist. Trust me, I got an A in chemistry. And then meanwhile, they're popping antidepressant pills at home. They're a complete neurotic mess. And if you actually saw the way that they behaved interpersonally and on Facebook, you would think that this person is a lunatic. But everything they say about COVID, you now are forced to believe everything that they say because they'll flip a wig on you if you don't. And this is why all of these mask mandates and rules are coming out, because none of them have any sort of basis in reality. You're like, okay, well, so yeah, 50% of the people who are dying are over the age of average age of death. All right. So then look at where is it? find the chart. It's miscategorized somewhere. Oh, here it is. Okay. So here's the chart of, I forget exactly where I pulled this off of. I think it was Statistica. I'm sorry, I didn't put the source down, did I? It's wealth by age in America. And it shows the wealth from 1989 to 2017 by the age groups. And so you could see this measly, pathetic red thing down here is the under 40 group of people. That's my age group. Yellows are the 40 to 54, followed by the 55 to 69, followed by the 70 plus crowd. The number is smaller, but that's because more of them have died off and they've given their money to the 40 to 54 crowd. So what you can see from this is that the people who are older, who are susceptible to COVID, the people who have the pre-existing conditions, these people have enough money that they can sit around in their house indefinitely until they die. It's because they saved up for their retirement and they have a massive, absolutely huge amount of money, and they probably have some rental properties too. They have a lot of other income sources that they you don't know about. So these are the group of people that we are supposed to sacrifice everything. We're supposed to make it so we don't have a family, so that we have increased suicide rates, so that our mortgages go under, and so our businesses go bankrupt, in order to protect this group of people who has enough money that they can sit around in their house until they die. This doesn't make any sort of sense. Me personally, I want to make out with some hot chick at a bar and get laid. And if you know any chicks that want to make out with me at a bar, you should comment on issue 80, realsimplenews.net/issue 80. Me personally, I want to see people's smiles. I went out to an unnamed bar in Eugene, and most people weren't wearing masks, and I got to see people smiling. And there was a pretty woman who she was playing pool and she was smiling, and I got to see a pretty woman smiling. It's to me, the risk factor of me dying from COVID, like it's a risk reward situation. Like, what's the risk? What's the reward? Okay, so if I fuck this chick, what's the chance that I'm going to get some STD? It's a lot higher than getting COVID. This is the thing, is like, okay, or sorry, dying from COVID. You really have to look at that. Like, how many people die from STDs in the US each year? Right? What? Well, hold on. No, I shouldn't be laughing about the number of deaths here. Look at this. Hold on. No, that's not right. No. That's the number of deaths each year. Okay. I was going to say that's crazy. So, and then what are we trying to, from STDs, right? These: heart disease, cancer, accidents, chronic pain, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, influenza, self-harm, suicide. Okay. Where's the STDs in here? So, 200,000 people, that would be about 10% of the deaths. The projected deaths for this year are going to be about 10% of the normal deaths. So, yeah, I mean, that's not something to discount, but you have to look at look at this. Accidents. Look at the number of people that die just from accidents per year. 169,936 people die just from accidents per year. This is why these ivory tower liberals and the white feminists are going apeshit, batshit crazy. And it's not just the antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. It's that they are failing to take into account the statistics of a large group of people with this many million people. They think, oh my God, 200,000 people are going to die from COVID. This is horrible. All right, well, look at all the other things that they're also too going to die from. They're going to die for 160,000 will die from chronic lower respiratory disease. Huh. Interesting. People with chronic lower respiratory disease 160,000 of them will die per year. Huh. I wonder why that is. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that there's 330 million people in the United States and about 2.814 million people die each year. Right? It's a statistic. I hate to be sound cold about it, but this is the reality. If you want to be a coward on a battlefield, you should focus on negative things, tuck tail, and run like a coward. If you want to win a battle, you should not be a coward. You should not tuck your tail, and you should focus on the issues that actually matter, and you should do it in a cold, cool, calculating manner. This is just reality. This is the problem with leftism, which is the focus on everything being fair above everything else, is that when you do, you can't see the forest for the trees. Like, these people are, all they can see are the COVID numbers are going up. COVID numbers are going up. But then to them, they're just like, oh, COVID's going up. So it's just, all right, just all around the country, COVID is just going up, right? Everywhere. So like in Oregon, we have a COVID outbreak, right? You see this graph and you're like, well, obviously this graph is not smooth. It has a lot of bumps in it. So why are there a lot of bumps? Sorry. This is from the article from NBC News, graphic coronavirus deaths in the U.S. per day. It's constantly updated with the script. Definitely worth bookmarking. You have to look at all of these deaths from COVID as really where they're at. Here's the deaths from New York. As you can see, there's no additional death count here. It's actually, there's no COVID problem in New York. Don't need to wear a mask there. New Jersey, the COVID outbreak is over. Michigan, it's over. Massachusetts, it's pretty much over. It's not quite. Louisiana is not over. They had another pocket of infections. Connecticut, pandemic's over. California, it looks like they peaked and they've gone down. It's going to be going down. My prediction is they're going to have another pocket flare up. This stuff, basically, it's like a forest fire. It's like there's like fuel in the forest and there's a fire and it can burn. And so you could wait. I fought forest fires for most of my life. And you eventually, after seeing these fires long enough, you know there's certain points where you just need to let the fire burn, because we can't put out the fire everywhere. Like, yeah, we could get that fire. I remember specifically this one fire near the mouth of the Grand Canyon. It was at a historical mining site, and it blew up into 200,000 acres, and we were fighting a couple of crews, Skookum Reforestation here in Eugene, and we were in a contract down in Utah, and we could have caught this fire, this brush fire. I remember I wanted to go so hard. I'm like, I can get it. I can get that right there. Just let me go. and they wouldn't let me go. That fire then turned into a 200,000 acre fire. It's a risk assessment. It's like, yeah, I could throw myself at that fire. I could fight that fire, and I might die fighting that fire. But what is it worth? What is it worth? For me, it wasn't really worth it. I just wanted to fight the fire. I didn't care about anything around there. I don't live there. I was just there for money. There's risk assessment when you're going to go in and you're going to fight a fire. You have to make a assessment as to how much benefit are we going to get? What's the risk? Who could die in the process of fighting this? And what is the difference in between us allowing it to just burn itself out like nature does and us throwing a massive amount of resources to stop this? And those questions are never easy. The leftists want to say, no, we're going to hit every fire. We're going to put them all out. But there's a problem with putting out all of the forest fires, is that it actually causes more forest fires. Sounds counterintuitive, but forests need to burn. You can't just like stop forest fires by putting out every forest fire. Doesn't work that way. We live in a real world. There's resources, there's time, there's constraints on resources and time. So you have to take your resources and you have to fight them, use them in order to fight this disease as in a long-term strategy, not just a short-term strategy of people like to vote for people who support forest fires. Like, this is the thing. People used to vote for politicians because they said that they were going to fight more, be more aggressive fighting forest fires. This is actually, it was a wave of people doing this at some point in time. Back when I was like in my 20s, because the people didn't know this stuff. And then they got the data, and then nobody does it. And they were advocating it for the policy because people voted for them, because they got a benefit, because there was money to be made in that process. And this is the same thing that's happening with the masks. They're like, okay, well, we have to shut down our economy. We have to, because some old people and some people with cancer who are probably going to die anyways soon might die a few months early. So we have to burden everyone else. We have to make it so that you can no longer kiss anyone. You can no longer have sex with anyone. You can no longer go out to a bar like normal. You can't just go to a restaurant. Most of them are closed down. The ones that are there don't allow you to sit inside. You have to sit outside. There aren't very many outside seating places. So this causes a lot of harm to our society that is not at all worth preventing somebody who is going to die, who had saved up money, and they are at their retirement home. They don't have to pay rent. They are on Social Security. They don't need the fact that they can get Social Security is the most blaring reason as to why they need to lock down. They need to be the ones that are preemptive quarantining. They need to wear masks. People who are sick need to wear masks. If you're sick, you probably shouldn't go out and give everybody COVID. Just in general, you should let nature deal with it. Nature is the best medicine. There's even 6 different strands of COVID, and only one of them is extremely deadly. That is the best vaccine that you can get right there. So I personally want to get the other 5 strands of COVID before I get the deadly strand of COVID, because I don't have cancer, I don't have diabetes, and I currently am running out of time to have more babies. If you too are running out of more time to have babies, you should comment at realsimplenews.net/issue 80. Where else? Okay, pretty much Ohio. They've been kind of low. Ohio's a very big state. That's pretty low. I would say that's low. They don't have Oregon on here. It's irritating. Let's go to covidusa.net and look up Oregon. This is my state. There's people watching from here. So let's go Oregon. We've had 388 deaths from COVID. That's about flu level. That's a bad flu season. So the way that you can... So here's I don't know why they put these infection rates are just junk science. So look here, it kind of went up. So this. I think Oregon is a good state to look at the graphs because of how it worked. The other states are a lot bigger. So Oregon is, I feel like this is kind of a good example of the over exaggeration that the media is having with this COVID thing. You can see, okay, well, we had people dying per day. How many people died per day? Average five deaths, right? So then we go to what's the population of Oregon? It's about 4 million. There's about 330 million Americans. So you go, that's how you do the math on it. You do 4 million. Hold on. Yeah, no, 4 million divided by 32 million. Or 330. It's saying 320, but that's wrong. Okay. So we're about 1.2% of the population. So there's about 2.8 million people who die per year. Right. And then we're going to multiply it times the other number. Wait, hold on. Oops. Right. So in Oregon, we would expect 33,000. Is that right? That's not right. Hold on. 1.2%, right? 4 divided by 320. Right. I knew that number looked wrong. No, it's 330. Right. So that's the ratio of the population of Oregon to the U.S., and then we would multiply that to 2.8 million. I'm having troubles. Yeah. I mean, that is insane. That's okay. Look at how many people die in Oregon statistically. Per year, that would be 33,938 or 940 people that die. Right? That's a lot of people. So when you say 338 of those 300 or those 33, let's just call it 34,000. Of those 34,000 people, 388 people is it's not a small number. It's 1.14% of the people who died were from COVID. That's not bad. That's really when you look at the realities of all the different ways that you can die in the world. Less than 1.5% of people died from COVID that year. All right. There's a lot of other ways you could have died too. We locked down, so there's also people that didn't die because they weren't in vehicle accidents. And then so when you start to look at, because like all the numbers in accurate, it definitely looks like an overreaction. There's they're like, oh, it looks so scary. I'm like, okay. it looks scary until you put it into comparison of all of the rest of the people that died. In fact, actually, if you looked at the number of people that die from seemingly mild infections, it would also, too, actually irritate you with the fear that they're selling you. And if you look through the RSS news feeds, it's really neat to look through these RSS news feeds to see what are the crap that these people put out, because you see these patterns. They're clickbait patterns. They have to put in. When you look at these streams through the perspective of somebody who's trying to optimize their subscription count, you can start to see why there's so much fake news. It's because there's so many of these articles every single day. It's like, what's in here? Sydney woman escaped death. Some COVID, spectrum analyzer software, open ramen. Hacker News is awesome. You should follow. You should definitely check out our Hacker News RSS feed. It's dope. There's this one says from the New York Post, gun-toting St. Louis couple will declare support for Trump at RNC. Weren't they formerly Democrats? They were like BLM supporters before that happened. You'll notice that the pattern here is they're going to put out articles about things that are trending, because that's what they do. They go on Twitter, they look for things that are trending, they find things that they think could trend, and then they, once they put out an article, then all of the other companies, media outlets have to then put out another article to compete with theirs. And then what you end up with is just like a flood of COVID stuff in this article. It's like COVID this, COVID that. Honestly, it's been less COVID recently. This one from Daily Mail says more than 2,000 bus drivers to strike if masks aren't made mandatory on public transit in Sydney. So the people read this stuff and they think because there's so many of these articles out there that it must be legit, right? No, that's not actually true. It's not legit because of how many articles they put out there. It's the opposite of the truth, which is a repeating thing in leftism. It's typically the exact opposite of the truth. So let me see. I need to get through. I do have another show. I need to hit up the important articles as quickly as I can. Got to make sure that I'm not hitting any of them. This is going to be the story for Real Simple News with Science here, the Extinction Rebellion. And I will give you a tease if you were watching this, because you do want to know. There is also coming up, there is a star that is going 8% of the speed of light. It is warping time around it. And you will be seeing presented an alternative theory of gravity based on the revelation that phonons, which is a subatomic particle, can exchange heat with the vacuum of space, implying that there must be something there heating it up. So there's a alternative version of gravity that explains black holes in a very eloquent way. And it just so happens I am the author of this theory. It is called the theory of thermal relativity. And it does actually facilitate faster than light travel. Technically, it makes you wonder what they were thinking when they said that you would shrink down to the size of a pea if you went the speed of light. That is absolutely crazy. But it is all basics based on a model of physics where the energy is being converted into mass, going into a black hole where E equals mc squared equals 0. This is why my nickname is Captain Kabuki. I am actually developing an open source spaceship that works on this principle. Now, the claim that that it can go faster than light is actually a relative It's a relative velocity. It's a gimmick, and it requires a lot of. It requires time to build up. So it's not a human scale. It's a universal scale machine. Here we go.